Okay, so in this video we're going to talk about more definitions, and I'm going to introduce some other concepts that are going to be important for you to know. So in this case here, what do we have? I have two parallel lines, so let's say I'm going to depict these parallel lines as such. So let's say this line is parallel to this line, okay? And so I've got two transversals here. I've got transversals, so, and here's another thing. I'm going to depict lines with lowercase letters. So M, N, L, and K represent those lines. And then angles, you can remember, you can represent angles with one letter at the vertex. Here I'm using numbers, okay? So this is angle 1, this is angle 2, and angle 3, and angle 4, and so on, okay? Just to make things easier to point out, okay? So we've got two transversals, L and K, and I'm going to introduce some other types of angles, okay? And so again, some of the things that we want to do is, first of all, we have some opposite vertical angles, right? We have vertical angles, and so one of the things you want to realize is that vertical angles are always equal. Okay? Opposite angles are always equal. Oops, I made a mistake. Okay. So that would mean right away when we see a transversal, right? When two lines intersect, they automatically create two pairs of opposite angles, right? So, or vertical angles. So vertical angles are always equal. So angle 4 is equal to angle 1. Angle 3 is equal to angle 2. Angle 5 is equal to angle 8. 7 is equal to angle 6, and so on. So we can write this easily. We could say, well, we know that angle 10 is equal to angle 11. Okay? And so on. Now, there's another type of angle, pairs of angles, that we want to talk about. There are, notice that again, these two lines are parallel. And if we cross with this transversal, what happens? We get these sets of angles, and we get these sets of angles. Well, it turns out, and if you think about it, it makes sense. It turns out that this angle here is the same as that angle there. So 6 and 2 are also the same measurement. Now, we also know that vertical angles are the same. So now we know that these three angles are the same, which means that 6 is equal to 3, which means, guess what? These are called opposite or alternate interior angles, right? We just showed that alternate interior angles are the same. Okay? Now, what else can we say? Well, so what I just said is these are called corresponding angles. Okay? So let me write this down. So corresponding angles, right? Corresponding angles. So corresponding angles are angles that correspond to each other. So this angle and this angle are the same. Those are corresponding angles. Okay? Likewise, 8 and 4, angle 8 and 4 are also corresponding angles. Okay? And sure enough, those corresponding angles are the same. Okay? Now, if those are the same, now remember, the opposite vertical angles are the same. So that means 8 and 5 are the same. But that also means that these two are the same. So now, let's back up a little bit. So we know that 6 and 2 are the same, but now we know, because of vertical angles, we know that also 6 and 3 are the same, which are called alternate interior angles. So alternate interior angles are also the same. Okay? So we would call angle 6 and angle 3 alternate interior angles. Okay? Alternate interior angles. We would call 8 and 1 alternate exterior angles. Okay? So we've got corresponding angles, right? We've got alternate interior angles, we've got alternate exterior angles, and we've got vertical angles. Okay? So we've got several different ways of showing that when you have a transversal, that you get angles, you can deduce that certain pairs of angles are equal. Okay? Oops, we got this one here too. Okay, so again, this is what happens when we get a transversal that intersects two parallel lines. Okay? We get all kinds of things that are equal. Okay? Also realize that, hey, angle 4 and angle 2 are supplementary, right? Because they add up to a straight line. 8 and 6 are supplementary. 5 and 6 are supplementary. Okay, so lots of things come out of this that we can use. Okay? What else do I want to say? Okay, one last thing that I want to do here, and I'm going to, let me draw another line here. Okay, I'm going to draw another parallel line, and let me do it right here. Okay, so let's say we got 3 parallel lines. Well, let's call, I'm going to use lowercase letters here. I'm going to call this line segment here. I'm going to call this line segment lowercase a. I'm going to call this line segment lowercase b, and this line segment here, C, and this line segment here, D. So what I'm going to set up is this here. From here to here is a line segment A. I'm going to call that A. From here to here is B. From this vertex intersection point to here is C, and from here to here is D. Now, if we have two transversals, so that's why I drew this one here. So we have two transversals that are intersecting three parallel lines. Well, there's another theorem that is really helpful with these line segments, with what we call corresponding line segments. Okay, so let me write that down. Corresponding line segments. Okay, so what is the definition of a corresponding line segment? Well, corresponding line segments are line segments that correspond to transversals. Okay? So there's segments of transversals between the same two parallel lines. Okay, so let me say that again. So when we have two parallel lines are crossed by two transversals, like what we have here, okay, the segments of the transversals between the same two parallel lines are called corresponding segments. Okay, so which line segments are corresponding? Well, this line segment is between these two parallel lines, and so is this line segment. So these would be corresponding segments, line segments. And then also, B and D would be corresponding line segments. So there's a theorem that tells us that if we take the ratio of corresponding line segments, those ratios are equal. Okay, so that means, based on our diagram, the ratio of A and C, the ratio of corresponding line segments, so that would mean A divided by C, and the other two, B and D, these two ratios must be equal. Okay? Okay, and that's it. Make sure you just study, and I'll see you next time. Have a good day.